Hello, everybody, and welcome to Responsible AI in Action by the Responsible AI Institute, where we are speaking with some of the leading experts in responsible AI. I'm very excited. Today we have Andrew Gamino-Cheong joining us. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, really excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm very excited to have you here. It's been great since my time being a part of the Institute to learn about you, learn about your work at Trustable, what Trustable's doing in the responsible AI space. It's incredibly important work. And so I'm excited to share more about you, more about Trustable with our viewers. I'm wondering if we could start there. You're, of course, the co founder and CTO of Trustable. What is Trustable's role in this greater responsible AI space?
So, Trustable is a responsible AI governance platform. Our goal is to enable organizations to connect their technical and their non-technical and AI governance stakeholders to help them accelerate collaboration to identify and assess the benefits and risks of their AI usage, comply with emerging regulations. We're helping provide a lot of insights about the best practices, the risks of AI to help them stay on top of what is a very quickly changing landscape. My own background is as a machine learning engineer who worked for about 8 years for a company called FiscalNote that was basically using AI to analyze the policy landscape. So I was using AI to actually understand what laws were being proposed, what was relevant there. One of the big trends we were seeing was on regulations for AI itself. And I was reading through these, thinking through what compliance for them would look like. While there's a lot of focus on sometimes the technical challenges here, some of the technical things are fairly straightforward to do, statistical tests about things, but trying to get buy-in from the rest of your organization about what you're doing in these practices and all of their roles, that's actually really hard. Detecting bias is a technical problem you can identify, but agreeing on what the definition of bias is that you need to look for based on the laws, based on your ethical principles, that's actually a much harder problem, one that needs to happen first. So those are the kinds of things that Trustable is trying to do. We work with a lot of organizations very focused on adopting the NIST AI risk management framework, ISO 42001, preparing for compliance for the AI Act.
Wow. Yeah, it's a lot to tackle. I'm curious too, as you were talking about your history as well as Trustable, and I guess I could make a guess, but I'd love to hear your answer on where the name Trustable comes from. What made you come up with that name?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember writing up on the board, trustworthy, responsible, ethical. And we're trying to decide, we want some combination of these different things. We actually decided to lean a little bit more on trustworthy and responsible, partly because ethical is very subjective. There's a lot of different views about what is ethical or not, especially within different domains. From our office building, we can see both the Pentagon and the National Institutes of Health. And these two groups will talk about ethical AI, but they don't mean the same thing at all, right? One is do no harm. The other is not that. But so we really focus on trustworthy and responsible. And then we tried a variety of different portmanteaus of that and then landed on trustable. So it's a
Oh,
portmanteau of
wow.
trustworthy and responsible AI.
Nice, nice. I like it. And you're talking about all the incredible work that Trustable does. We recently saw news about OpenAI and Microsoft essentially announcing this AI supercomputer that they're going to be launching, I believe in 2028, I believe the article said. AI, of course, is the biggest topic of conversation. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's trying to figure out solutions on how to approach it. I'm wondering if you can provide your perspective on how we can manage responsible AI governance in this large of a capacity.
Yeah. One of the first books I read in this space that really got me thinking about the AI supply chain and the value chain and all the layers of things that people don't always think about is The Atlas of AI by Kate Crawford. And she does a really good job at actually outlining that AI governance and responsible AI might actually impact things as far down in your supply chain as like the impact of workers or mining the lithium used to create the chips that power all this stuff and the demand for compute resources, which is what this OpenAI and Microsoft announcement is all about, is increasing like never before. What's interesting is actually at a panel that our head of ML hosted last night, something that was brought up is for a lot of these groups using AI and generative AI in production capacities already, its ability to scale is actually a little bit limited. You can do a little bit of stuff, but sometimes your token count or the reliability of these systems are themselves limited. And OpenAI and Microsoft, they understand this. They realize this. That's why they're investing probably one of the largest single investments I think I've ever heard at $100 billion to building out dedicated data centers and computing facilities for this. It's not just about the training stuff. And actually, it turns out that the energy cost of the training is only a small amount compared to the energy cost of all of the servers running the model for inference of things. And one thing that's now coming up more and more is, yeah, like, yes, you can use an LLM for something, but that might be overkill for what you need, especially because you would be using a huge amount of compute, a large amount of resources in terms of energy and water for cooling these things. And if you're actually tackling a relatively small problem, you're using kind of a power tool to hammer in a nail. And it's kind of a mismatch of things. So one thing I think about for a lot of orgs is that you should really be matching the appropriate tool with the right problem. So there are definitely some hard things that large language models and these incredible systems can handle. There also might be some humbler problems. If you're just trying to do a little bit of cleanup of the document or some other stuff, smaller models that are less impactful might actually be more ethical to use because they have a smaller environmental footprint than some of these other things.
Yeah, I really love your analogy of finding the appropriate tool and using it for the right problem. I think that that is such a key there where we're talking about AI because there is so many avenues and so much happening in the space that I feel like sometimes it's that inclination to kind of throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. But as you're saying, I think it's important to be methodical with regards to what tools we're using and what we're using them for. I know that Trustable works with a lot of leading experts in AI. In your opinion, Andrew, what do you think AI leaders should be thinking about with regards to balancing risk with innovation, especially as
Yeah.
it's related to generative AI?
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of a shiny new object syndrome going around. The hype has really pushed that forward. One big challenge that we're running into a lot right now is that leaders are being overwhelmed with a number of different options for things, right? There's a lot of new models coming out, a lot of new capabilities. It is very hard to stay on top of that. If you really want to even understand the risks, you need to go a little bit deeper into understanding which models to use. A lot of groups right now are selecting which models to use based on what's available in their current cloud, based on what's the cheapest, or based on some kind of benchmark performance in certain tasks. But they're not really actually factoring in maybe the ethical principles of these models. We've actually been doing some work in the space and have now rated a lot of models and rated their public documentation based on some different ethical or compliance principles that might be in there. So like actually trying to understand which models comply with the general purpose AI requirements of the EU AI Act, for example. It's meant to inform the conversation about what models to use in order to incorporate that risk element. Now, the other part of that is actually doing and understanding for a different use case, what are those risks? Some of our first customers were some of the most conservative, where they initially just banned all generative AI. They didn't understand it. They're hesitant about it. They're getting so much pressure to at least experiment that the first thing they're using our platform to do is actually get dozens of different proposals for AI and identified the ones that were high benefit and low risk and low cost, right? And starting to their innovation there, starting to understand how they want to implement safeguards around this technology, honestly doing a lot of education and training of their staff as well. So I think that's the main thing is actually being very deliberate about where you're investing that's maximizing those benefits and minimizing those risks.
Well, we're very lucky to have leaders like yourself, Andrew, and organizations like Trustable who are helping people and organizations at large implement AI governance and structures in a responsible way. So you're really leaving us a lot of great insights to think about after viewing this episode today. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to join us, Andrew, and really appreciate your thoughtful work as well as it relates to responsible AI. Where can our viewers find out more information about you and the work that Trustable is doing?
Yeah, you can find us at trustable.ai. You can check out and follow us on LinkedIn or subscribe to our newsletter. We actually publish every other week a really in-depth newsletter. A big thing we try and focus on there is translating some of the policy news for a technical audience so that they can understand, try and bypass the legal jargon and all this stuff to what it might impact the day-to-day of like machine learning practitioners. And then vice versa. We try and analyze some of the more technical news, what that might mean for some of the legal, the compliance, some of the non-technical roles who are getting a lot more involved with AI governance. So following us there, we share a lot of our thought leadership on that front. Yeah.
Yes, I for your viewers out there, highly recommend the newsletter. I am a subscriber, of course, and there's just so much valuable information in there and very digestible as well. So I'll be sure to include the links to those various resources in our show description. So viewers just scroll down, definitely check out all those various resources provided. Andrew, thank you so much again for taking the time.
Always a pleasure, Patrick.